All right, let's jump right into this explainer of a really unique book from the 19th century. It's called The Spirit's Book, and it makes a pretty bold claim that it's a complete roadmap for life, with answers to all our biggest questions, supposedly dictated by beings from another realm.
But before we even crack open the book, we gotta set the stage a bit. To really get the answers it offers, we first need to sit with the huge, timeless questions it's trying to tackle.
I mean, this is maybe the oldest question there is, right? If there's any fairness or kindness in the universe, why is the world so often filled with pain, with tragedy, and with stuff that just seems so random and cruel?
And what about the lottery of birth? It just feels so arbitrary, doesn't it? Why does one person get born into a life of comfort and endless opportunity, while another person has to fight for survival from their very first breath? Where's the justice in that?
And then, of course, the big one, the ultimate mystery. When our heart stops, is that it? Game over? Or is there something more? For thousands of years, this is the question humanity just can't shake.
So yeah, these are the heavy hitters, the kinds of questions that can keep you up at night. And this is exactly where The Spirit's Book enters the conversation, claiming to have not just vague comfort, but a whole system of answers.
Okay, so here's the core idea, and it's a wild one. The book says it wasn't written by any single person. Instead, it's a collection of teachings that were transmitted by advanced spirits. And the goal was to give humanity a logical, coherent way to understand the universe.
Now, you'll see the name Allan Kardec on the cover, but he was always very clear that he wasn't the author. He saw himself as more of an organizer, an editor. He was this French educator who basically took hundreds of questions to different mediums, recorded the spirit's answers, and then compiled it all into this massive Q&A book.
So what's the engine that drives this entire philosophy? Well, it all comes down to one central, powerful idea about what the soul is and what it's here to do.
And that big idea is reincarnation. But, and this is a really crucial point, the book doesn't frame it as a punishment. It sees it as the very engine of progress. It's like we're all enrolled in a cosmic school, and each lifetime is a new classroom, with lessons specifically designed to help us learn and grow.
The whole process is laid out as a clear cycle. First, you have your physical life. That's your trial or your mission. When you die, your spirit is freed and goes to the spirit world for a period of review, kind of like looking at the game tape. Then, based on that reflection, you choose a new life, a new set of challenges to keep making progress. It's a constant loop of learning.
You have to realize how radical this was in the 1800s. The dominant idea was one life, one judgment, and then an eternity of reward or punishment. This book comes along and says, nope, there's no such thing as eternal damnation. Instead, there are endless second chances for every single soul to learn, fix their mistakes, and eventually get it right.
Okay, but this brings up the most obvious question, right? The one everybody asks. If we've lived all these lives before, why can't we remember any of it? Well, the book tackles that question head on.
The answer it gives is that this forgetfulness is actually a gift. It's an act of mercy. I mean, think about it. Could you really function today if you carry the weight of every mistake, every trauma, every enemy you ever had over hundreds of lifetimes? It would be crushing. This amnesia is a clean slate that lets us focus on the lessons right here, right now.
So, how does this whole cycle of lives actually work as a system of moral cause and effect? How does it explain the suffering and inequality that we see all around us?
This is the book's direct answer to that question of injustice. It argues that the challenges we face aren't random at all. They're tailor-made educational experiences. So, if someone was a tyrant in a past life, they might be reborn into slavery to learn empathy. If they were incredibly selfish, they might experience poverty to understand generosity. Life becomes a kind of mirror, where suffering isn't meaningless anymore, it has a purpose.
So if reincarnation is the school system, what's on the curriculum? According to the spirits, all our progress is governed by a few universal moral laws, but there's one virtue that stands above all the rest. The book literally asks this question, and the answer it gives goes way beyond just, giving some money to someone in need. Here it is, a three-part moral compass. First, benevolence for everyone, which is just basic kindness. Second, indulgence for the imperfections of others, which means cutting people some slack because we're all flawed. And finally, forgiveness of injuries, letting go of grudges. This, the book argues, is the fast track to making spiritual progress. So let's zoom out and bring it all together. The book lays out this very logical, complete system, but what does that mean for our own free will? And what's the ultimate endgame for humanity? Well, this all raises a pretty important question. If spirits are influencing us and our past actions are shaping our present,
Are we even in control? Are we just puppets on a string?
The answer is a firm no. The book teaches that spirits can suggest things, they can inspire ideas, both good and bad, but the final choice is always ours. They can't force us to do anything. Free will and the responsibility that comes with it is never, ever taken away. And all of this builds to a really hopeful vision for the future. The idea is that as more and more of us learn our lessons, the collective morality of the entire planet rises. This makes Earth a better place, one that attracts good spirits and isn't so great for the not-so-good ones. The ultimate vision is a world of peace and justice, where every single soul is guaranteed to reach perfection, eventually.
And that's where we'll leave it. The Spirits book presents this universe of perfect cause and effect, where every question seems to have a logical answer. So that leads to our final, thought-provoking question. If a spiritual system could offer that kind of logical certainty, basically replacing belief with a form of understanding, what would that mean for the very nature of faith itself?